I love Bell Hooks. She said to know but verify in praxis, right? And so the more we have a belief that change is possible, that we're not stuck where we are, the more consciously or unconsciously we're pressing deeper into a state of praxis where we're trying out ideas, you know what I mean? We're willing to press for something different. And I think when one person does it, it's powerful. But when a community does it collectively, oh, that's where you see multiple little cracks and breakthroughs and learning.
You're now listening to In Praxis, a podcast from the Praxis Project created to support, hear from, and uplift the stories coming out of the ecosystem of base-building organizing, an ecosystem that includes frontline groups building community power and the folks who help support their important work. In Season 3, our host, Blair Franklin, is exploring community-driven strategies for food justice. Our guests are incredible community organizers working to advance fair farming practices, community-led urban farming, and equitable food procurement and retail. These are their stories about how we feed our communities with healthy, culturally appropriate, fair, and affordable food, and build community power to advance health equity through food justice. So welcome, Amaha. Thank you so much for being present for this conversation today. I'm really excited to, get into it and get to know more about both you and your connection to and work with Gem City Markets. Just to get us started, can you give us a little bit of detail, intro around, just who you are and the work that you do in the world?
Cool, good, thanks. Yeah, I'm thankful to be here and the opportunity to learn and share. Like I said, my name is Amaras Story. I'm a public sociologist, basically focused on community work, how to walk with the community towards, health equity and food justice and any kind of way to help the community realize the power that it has, because I truly believe in our communities that we are the ones we've been waiting for. And so, like, how do we leverage to get some talents in our community towards future we want to co-create together? I got in this work really just through a desire of believing that we were more than we were realizing at the time. I just felt that our communities were better. I just felt that it was, our lack of relationships and these different things that was hindering us from realizing what we already had in our midst, not even, what we could bring into our community, but just what we could leverage amongst us. I got into food justice work in particular around emerging a food co-op called the Gem City Market, which we're a worker-owned and community-owned co-op that just actually opened about 3 months ago now. It took about...
Congratulations.
Oh, thank you very much. Yeah. It's amazing. We were organizing it for 4 or 5 years. And so, it's an interesting transition, shifting from having the thing that we were organizing from it just being in the idea states, so we're thankful for that. So through that work, we were able to mobilize the community. Food is one of the best ways to organize a community, actually, because it's a basic need, and it's a way that we can build power and help people realize their sense of agency to be actors in the narratives that we're creating.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Thank you so much. You talked a little bit about, we're the ones we've been waiting for, talking about food justice as critical to building power and agency. And that, it took 4 or 5 years of organizing to even get the Gem City Market to be open. So I'd like to even take us further back and just think about what's your origin story? What's your food justice story? How did you come to the work? Yeah, what experiences made you know that this is where you needed to be?
Okay, sure. Yeah, it's a great question. I think my food justice origin story actually begins with being in the community, striving for reconciliation and forgiveness. I just truly believed that we were more. And I didn't have language for it, but I just knew we needed to just forgive each other and heal our wounds so that we could truly move forward as a community. I was in the community talking a lot about agape love, right? Unconditional love. And the need to have this heart amongst each other that we could truly be better than we were separate. And while I was doing that, about like 2012, 2013, I was working at my aunt's gas station and I was reading a book, Martin Luther King's A Stride Towards Freedom. And in that book, he said agape love was community. And I just stopped in my tracks. Wait a minute, what? Agape love is community? What does this mean? You know, and I started pondering it more, and I thought, okay, he's coming from a Christian perspective, so you know, many people in one body, that sense of community. And then I started realizing, so you mean this whole time that I've been in the community talking about agape love, I actually was working towards community, and like that was just a revelation for me. And then it was like anything I could get my hands on to, you know, what is community organizing. I switched my major to sociology. I mean, like anything I could do to learn more of like what this thing of community is. I learned about that. That's what got me doing more organizing work in the community. And then in 2015, coming off of working for justice for John Crawford III, who was killed in 0.2 seconds at our local Walmart, these maps came out that measured opportunity through the Current Institute and Montgomery County Public Health. And what was clear was opportunity in Dayton was divided by race. And what I mean opportunity, I mean conditions favorable for the attainment of the goal. So Dayton is a hyper-segregated city, meaning that 98% of African Americans live on the west side of the river, and 94% of our white community lives on the east side of the river, with the rest being Latino community, African refugees, and the Turkish community. But what's clear from these maps was that all of West Dayton was designated as low and very low opportunity. That really stuck out to me because redlining created concentrated disinvestment on West Dayton and concentrated the African American community. And now we had evidence that like that concentrated disinvestment has now turned into an opportunity line where we have, you know, low and very low opportunity. So we had a meeting to talk about it. And then through that meeting, in conjunction with some other work that was happening by some other organizers in the community, we kind of settled on food being a major issue, in part because there was 40,000 residents in West Dayton and no full service grocery store. The one that we had at Kroger's had shut down about 10 years prior. And so we had to literally leave Dayton or cross the river in order to have a decent grocery store. So that's kind of how I got into the food justice, was just out of the need that, like, you know, the multitude of our community, east and west side, had to take one or two buses to get to a grocery store in 3 hours time, you know, that they had to think about if they wanted to get access to fresh fruits and vegetables. If not, they went to the dollar store or Dollar General, which at that time had no fresh food, you know what I mean? So they're eating canned foods on a daily basis. And so it was that struggle and that sense of context, I think, that like got me concentrated on providing food.
Yeah, wow. 40,000 residents and no full service grocery store. That's deep, right? The process of you both like really understanding this feeling, this like purpose around agape love and unconditional love and community and how that connected you to this work, I think is profound. Yeah. So thank you for both like bringing that term into the space so we can all like do some of our own research, understanding of agape love and how we can also be in practice around that moving forward. Yeah, I really appreciate that.
Yeah, good thing. You know, something interesting, right? That so we had 40,000 residents and no full service grocery store. But the thing was, at that time, including myself, we kind of accepted that as a norm.
Yeah.
You know, when we go to other parts of the community, you know, like probably 10 miles from us, there's this one corner where they had two full service grocery stores on the same corner. And we have a great swath of land, I don't know how many miles it is, and no full service grocery store. We accepted it. And I think that's the key thing. Like part of the community transformation and transforming power in relationships is not accepting the unacceptable. Really having the audacity to say, yo, you know what? We deserve access to fresh fruits and vegetables like every other community, and not waiting for others to give us the answers, but realizing our own agency to make it happen, right? To create and transform our physical environment to meet our own needs. And it blows my mind now that we accepted it for so long, including myself. You know, I'm squarely in that boat with everybody else.
Yeah. So that transformation, I mean, you kind of named, right, that this process to even go from coming up with the thought that we have to do something about this to moving to the Gem City market being a real tangible thing that's present in community, that was built by community. That was some time. And so I'm curious, like, what was the community's relationship to food? How did that change over time through this
Mm-hmm.
process? How were the relationship to each other transformed through this process? How was the relationship to power transformed through this
Oh yeah,
process?
well, that's a great question. I think our relationship to food at the time was we either had to drive. If you had access to a car, you know, you had that privilege. You had to drive outside the city to go to a grocery store, or you had to take a bus and take about at least 3 hours, you know, with the ride there and back to get groceries, and how to navigate your time to do that. And, you know, if you have a big family, do you bring multiple people with you? Are you making multiple trips? This whole next level of thought to navigate and negotiate, you know, living in a space that's a food apartheid. Or you went to the corner store, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and it was not uncommon to see people walking out of a Dollar General with a grocery cart full of food, and that was just where we shopped. You know what I mean? And so I think that was our relationship, you know, and it's transforming. Like when the market opened, one of the biggest blessings was I kept hearing people say, I love seeing people walk down the street with bags of groceries. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? Like
Mm-hmm.
everybody kept talking about that at first. You know what I mean? It's like, wow, like we're literally seeing people walking down the street with groceries now. Like I'm a mango fanatic, you know, and
Same,
so I
same.
have a mango bias, which I want to be transparent about, right? But I started thinking about it, and I was like, I don't think a mango's ever been sold in this community before, because when we had the grocery stores before, mangoes weren't a thing like it was now. You know what I mean? Like, you know, because you can't grow them in Ohio. And so, like, I think like this is the first time for a large part of West Dayton that we've ever had mangoes sold before. And something so simplistic at that just really hit me. It's like, dang, it just blew my mind just thinking about that. So I think our relationship to food is shifting. So actually, in our grocery store, we're not just a grocery store. We also have a health clinic, a teaching
Mm-hmm.
kitchen, and a community room all inside the market, right? And so we're focusing on this notion that, you know, our food is our medicine, and having language and signage inside the store that connects like this product's good for heart disease or diabetes, you know, like, so we try to connect food with medicine inside the store while not food shaming anybody either. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, we sell Oreos and different type of food, you know what I mean? Because we want to meet people where they're at, but we want them to have the healthier options available. As far as how the community has shifted, I think we've been developing our we. What I mean by developing our we or expanding our we is that we're developing this sense of a shared identity through the process of building the market, in part because we've been highly participatory. So from the name of the market, from our initial survey that asked, you know, would people be interested in a grocery store and would you shop at a grocery store? Our initial survey, I think we did it for about a month and a half. We got over 1,000 responses, but we went to laundromats, gas stations, public transportation hubs. You know what I mean? Like we went deep into the community to see if it's a project that people would even be interested in. You know, our mission statement, even the architecture. We had our architects, they were out in the community for about 2 or 3 months getting feedback and then kept modifying their responses. And so through this process, we built a sense of community. Like we built this ecosystem of people working together. I think when we opened, we had about 4,000-ish members, and now we're about to hit 5,000. We might even hit it by now because that was a couple of days ago. So this sense of community and working together for a shared purpose and keeping the power with the community. You know, we are highly decentralized, and you know, if people wanted to have a meeting, they had a meeting in the name of Gem City Market, or if they wanted to open up a cornhole team and call it Gem City Market, hey, go for it. You know what I mean? So this way that we built this sense of leadership because we wanted to be a leaderful organization, leaderful community. So I think our relationship to power, it's been transforming because to me, power is connected to hope.
Mm-hmm.
And hope is the belief that we can change something, we can change our lived environment, and that sense of agency that we can do that, I think has changed. Now, like, the hope is increased in our community, whereas before the area has been highly disinvested. And for a long time, so many people promised to do things in our communities, and they overpromised and underdelivered, that it increased our level of despair and to a certain extent, our lack of agency, right? And through this process of like building something that is our biggest project, but in the scheme of community transformation is very small, but we did it, you know what I mean? And now we believe that we can do it. And when you see people, we have hope in our eyes now that, yeah, we can do more than this. This is just the beginning, right? And so, all kinds of different projects have been spawning off of this, and new entrepreneurs and just different things. So like our hope is increasing. And to me, that's a direct relationship with power, because the more hope we have, the more power we're realizing towards transforming our lived environment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, hope. That's so central, like essential, right? I think to the work, to building power, to being able to, to activate and organize and change environments and systems. So yes, yes. You mentioned kind of talking a little bit, the market itself, you mentioned it's got a health clinic, there's a teaching room, there's like so many different ways you're also talking about healing and wellness beyond just food inside of the market. And then you also mentioned before, earlier in the conversation, something around like kind of forgiveness and healing our wounds to be able to move forward. If you can just expand on any of that and talk about the ways that healing has happened through this process.
I think healing has happened in a lot of ways, right? So probably in one of the largest ways is that in Dayton we've had this east-west divide, right? Like our community's been black and white, and there hasn't always been the best relationship between East and West Dayton, and people from West Dayton didn't go east, and people from East Dayton didn't go west, and people from the rest of the region didn't go into West Dayton, right? Because like if you look at our regional map, 90-some%, if not more, of African Americans for the whole region are concentrated in West Dayton, right? Like redlining was a real situation here. We're like, in top 10 in the nation as far as segregation. So East and West came together to help with this project, right? So there's been this healing. And to me, it's part of this larger conversation of a shared future. Because I think there's a misnomer that we don't automatically have a shared future, right? And so this notion of interdependence and Ubuntu, that I am because you are, right? And that like, we have a shared future regardless, but like it's our acknowledging our shared future that enables us to co-create it together. And that's, to me, is part of the healing process that's been taking place. And just healing relationships in general, that people have been coming together. Like there's groups that have, I don't know if you call them walking groups, but like people are emerging like different kind of health and wellness things out of it. We have on Tuesdays, we have a program called Moms at the Market, which is focused on new moms and moms to be. So we have doula services, lactation services, and different things like that to provide extra support to moms, because our infant mortality rate was, Ohio at one point was second in the nation, and we were pretty high up there, and there's a huge disparity between black and white infant mortality in our region. I think it's like 3 or 4 times different, something like that. So that's another form of healing. I think we're in the beginning process of really connecting food as medicine. Like I still think there's work to be done on that, but there's been conversations before from different healthcare providers and different health food stores in the region. But I think we're starting to hit that more. And I think the groundwork from before is beginning to actually bear fruit. You see a lot of people transforming their diets now. So I think that's a blessing as well. But I think the real key is the healing of relationships, even within West Dayton. And also, even if the relationships weren't frayed, they weren't that strong connection. We are firm believers in being relational and not transactional, and also building quality connections versus having mass. We talk about how movements move at the speed of trust, right? And so we're very, very relational. You see that shift in our community now, that like people want a slower process, because we realize it's deep work that actually is sustainable work. If we're going to have sustainable transformation, it's going to be the strength of our connections.
Yeah. What were the greatest barriers you experienced to your work, and how did
Mm.
you overcome them to get to this point?
I would say we got two barriers. One was building trust in the beginning. It took some time for people to believe. Like, what? Y'all building what? You know what I mean? And then like, oh, they're gonna steal the money, and oh, people done something before, and then you know what I mean? Like, so we had to get over all of those hurdles. And part of how we did that by we just kept our eye on the prize, and we kept building and creating, concrete structures and processes, and we continually showed improvement towards the thing. And then, people started to believe and join and went and volunteer. So that was our hurdle. And I think one of our biggest hurdles right now is a grocery store doesn't have the same buying power as like a Kroger's or a Walmart or something
Mm,
like that, right? And
mhm.
so we're in a struggle right now to really deliver the food that our community deserves at a price that they can afford and also sustain us. We average close to $15 an hour. You know what I mean? So like we have a lot of standards that we've set for the market. And so to do that and still have it at a price point where it's accessible is a challenge that we're still navigating to figure out.
Yeah, standards that are so critically important to hold, and yeah, still like yeah, 100%. You're still operating within a market that's making it
Right.
hard to navigate that. Yeah, that's real. What does success look like? How do you measure it?
I think success for me is participation, how many people participating and growing the market. We like to say that it's not just a market, but a movement, right? And so, like, how the market is catalyzing and being a support for the broader movement towards, community transformation and increasing human dignity and increasing a sense of belonging, right? Because we're kind of building an alternative space. Well, not kind of, we are building in an alternative space. You know what I mean? For those that like truly want to acknowledge the dignity and worth of all human beings, right? Like, how do we create a space that does that, and an economy that does that? And so the market is a way to shop our values and to live our values and to connect with others that have that same value. So we make those that are striving for this, we make it more visible to each other to increase our level of cooperation and collaboration towards a co-creative vision. I think increasing the number of members that either have joined the market or are shopping there. And I think just for me, probably also like realizing more of a level of agency and realizing more of how to utilize our gifts and talents, like asset-based community development. When I see more people putting more of their gifts into the center of the circle, to me, that's success, right? Because I think ultimately, the more we believe that change is possible and that another world is possible, the more we have the courage to put our full gifts into the center. So first we need to acknowledge everybody has gifts so that I can value your gifts and not try to compete against it, right? But also that I'm willing to put my gifts to the center for the benefit of the community. So to me, those are success, and being rooted in love. The more that like we see our actions and our community moving in a way that is striving to go deeper and deeper into being rooted in love, which I think is like the foundation for any healthy, striving community. Abundant. That's the word. Yeah.
Hmm. There is so much richness you shared. I mean, throughout this entire interview, but especially in that last response, I'm like, let me sign up for the movement.
You already in it, right? And now
Yes,
we're connecting
yes.
deeper, right? So yeah.
Yeah, just really, really appreciate. I mean, yeah, talking about building an economy that centers dignity and belonging, a space where folks can put their gifts in the center of the circle, being rooted in love. Yeah, just, I mean, it sounds very much like movement toward liberation, right?
Mm.
Towards like the world that we are all actively dreaming and actively deserve. So, yeah,
Yeah, that's the goal. And that's where I think praxis comes in, right? Like I'm just a firm believer in praxis. I teach sociology, I teach it in my class. I strive to live it, right? Because I think the more we have hope and we realize our power, the more that we have the courage to try out our ideas. You know what I mean? To see what works, what doesn't work, to reflect upon it, and then, that informs our next action. I love Bell Hooks. She said, to know but verify in praxis, right? And
mm,
so the more we have a belief that change is possible, that we're not stuck where we are, the more consciously or unconsciously we're pressing deeper into a state of praxis where we're trying out ideas. You know what I mean? We're willing to press for something different. And I think when one person does it, it's powerful. But when a community does it collectively, oh, that's where you see multiple little cracks and breakthroughs and learning. So it's like, how do we develop our collective intelligence and our ways of sharing our wins and sharing what worked and what didn't work and having the nuanced conversations to truly, get us continually moving forward together.
Whew. And so you talked about the goal, you talked about being in praxis, being in community, moving toward liberation. You mentioned abundance earlier. If you had unlimited resources, right, what would you do to access and continue to live that vision and live that dream and increase your impact?
If I had unlimited resources,
unlimited.
Wow. I don't know if this is the resource answer, right? But I would want to make visible the authentic aspirations and heart of the community. Because I believe even though that some people have different ideas of how to move a community forward, I think underneath all of that, there's this sense of desire that where we at right now is not sustainable, not acceptable, not a place where we can rest at, And I think the more that people saw how many other people actually believe that change is possible, the more we would move in a more solid, firmer steps towards it, right? Because it's how we get more of the community's gifts into play towards co-creating our future. I truly believe that we have the power of self-determination, and it's our lack of putting our gifts to the center. And I don't know if that's a resource thing or not. I mean, it could be, as far as giving people the jobs, developing a co-op economy where we're producers, and we're building our own economy by the things that we're producing and consuming, But yeah, to me, I just want to make visible the heart, which I don't know if that's a resource answer per se.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think what I love about it is it's a reframe from resources being financial to resources being time, right? Or unlimited energy, or, those other resources that are key to get to deeper impact and to get to that goal, right? And so, I think those feel like resources to me. I think that's so legit.
But you know what? I'm thinking about this more now.
Yeah, do it.
I think if I had the wand to change anything, I would change the underlying assumption. Hands down. Right? And what I mean by underlying assumption, so we know that ideology or ideas are what build structures, right? So we have an idea and then we leverage our resources towards making that idea a reality. You know what I mean? So even the example of the notion that one group of human beings are superior than the other, that is not true. But if I leverage my resources towards making a system like that, then it starts to appear like it's a real thing, even though it's not, right? And so to me, it's the underlying assumption that needs to be challenged in this hour. Is love ultimate reality, right? Are we truly interdependent? Independence is a social construct, because the coronavirus has shown us this, the environment is showing us this, that we're interdependent. Ubuntu, it's not just great ideas, but it's actually the ultimate reality, or, the construction of the universe, right? But we're operating on a false assumption, and we built all these things off of it. So if I had a magic wand, I would utilize the resources to make plain what is the nature of reality. You know what I mean? Is it interdependent or independent? And I think everything else comes from that, right? Because if we know we're interdependent, then we know love, we know cooperation, forgiveness, grace. All of these things come from knowing our interdependence instead of dependence. Independence.
Yes. I'm here for all of it. And I guess as we get to close, I mean, is there a piece of advice that you feel like you would give to someone thinking about starting an initiative like this, going on a similar journey of like being rooted in community, working alongside community to build this vision and beyond.
Sure. Yeah. For anybody that is thinking about, starting a co-op or starting any kind of endeavor for the community, I think I would start by, not only thanking you, but also let you know that you're not alone. I think like knowing what other work is happening in your community, what is the state of your ecosystem, and seeing how to partner and walk with those other initiatives is great. And for a food co-op in particular, I think it's like, so you have this container where, you have anti-racism work, or you have all this work happening, whatever it is, towards moving humanity forward. But then like how to start creating spaces of geography where those places can meet, right? So like the market serves as a third space, so you have your home, you have your work, but where do you have in community where you're actually building community where, like Norm and Cheers, for those, who are seeing the show, where everybody knows your name, So we're trying to situate the co-op inside of an already existing movement. So here's geography where we can meet, gather, strategize, build the deeper relationships, heal the wounds, et cetera, So regardless of, whatever work someone's trying to do, I think increasing participation is important, but also I think like building collaboration, like we call collaboration our superpower. So, even our health clinic came from collaboration, with a local hospital system. Our teaching kitchen came from collaboration with a different hospital system. And the community room came about through collaborative efforts as well. So we're real big on like how to build bridges, how to build trust in the community and things like that. So like doing like the deep work that may seem like it doesn't matter, but like it's some of the foundational pieces that allow whatever to go forward, So I would just encourage everybody to be relational and see how to collaborate with projects that are already happening and how the piece that you're adding fits into the larger piece that's already emerging in your community.
Which brings us back to that interdependence and that love that you mentioned before. That's, beautiful. Is there, before we close, is there anything that you haven't spoken that you just want to add? Any like final statements, final things you want to acknowledge?
I'm reading the book by Dr. Nemhart, Collective Courage. And there's a quote in there that really stood out to me. And it said that part of cooperation is being someone that you can cooperate with. That puts the emphasis on me. Am I somebody that other people feel that they can cooperate with, that other people feel that they can trust to work with, and this, that, and other? It's really like, how am I showing up in the world? How am I showing up in spaces? Am I walking in love, right? The work is external, right? But it's also internal, to really be the person that others can work with towards achieving long-term, broader systemic change, right? That takes all of us. And I think also, I probably already said it 1,000 times, but living into the notion that like, the Bible says the foot can't tell the hand, I don't need it. And the hand can't tell the eye, I don't need it. So really knowing that like, when we say we are the ones we've been waiting for, is that we already have the gifts and talents in our community to be what we need. And it's our lack of relationship, our lack of cooperation and collaboration that is hindering us. And so it's not like waiting for people outside, but it's like, how do we build what we have right now? And if we need some more, the energy we create by coming together draws in the extra resources.
Statements to live by. And thank you, Amaha, so much. For the time, the gems of wisdom that you provided to us in this conversation, and really getting us to giving a little window into both your work and the community's work in Ohio. So,
well, thank you.
So yeah,
thank you for your great questions and for your time and for all the work of the Praxis Project.
Thank you for listening to this episode of In Praxis. We hope you all enjoyed it. Make sure to visit our website, www.thepraxisproject.org, where you can check out additional episodes with other guests, as well as learn more about our work.